So picture this. It's the dead of winter, 1959. 9 expert hikers head deep into Russia's Ural Mountains. They were supposed to be gone for a couple of weeks, but they never came back, at least not alive. And what the search parties found wasn't just a tragedy. It was a scene so completely bizarre that it's become one of history's most terrifying unsolved cases.
And let's be clear, these weren't just some weekend campers. This group was made up of 9 incredibly experienced, Grade 2 certified hikers. We're talking top-tier engineering students and graduates who knew exactly what they were doing. They were prepared for anything. And that's what makes what happened next so baffling.
Because this is the absolute core of the mystery. You have a group of survival experts who fled their only shelter, their one and only shot at staying alive, and ran straight out into a deadly -30-degree blizzard. Some of them were barefoot, a lot of them were barely dressed. So the real question isn't just what killed them, but what on earth could have made them do that? And this is the first clue where things get really weird. The tent wasn't ripped apart by an animal or shredded by the wind. Nope. Forensics confirmed it was sliced open from the inside. Whatever they were running from, it was so terrifying they couldn't even take 2 seconds to unzip the flap. They had to cut their way out. Okay, so to really wrap our heads around this, we need to rewind a bit. Let's take a look at the group and what they were trying to do on this really ambitious 14-day trek into the frozen wilderness.
So when you look at their timeline, what's so striking is just how normal everything seemed. We actually have their diaries and photos, and for the first 9 days, it's just a tough but happy trip. Then on February 1st, they set up their last camp on the slope of a mountain called Holat Shako. They were supposed to send a telegram by February 12th to let everyone know they were okay, but that telegram was never sent. And then just silence.
And, just to add another layer of absolute dread to the story, that mountain where they made their final camp, Kholat Syakhl, well, in the language of the local Mansi people, the name translates to Dead Mountain. Yeah, chilling. So when the search party finally made it out to their last known location, what they discovered wasn't just tragic, it was a scene of just utter, baffling strangeness. This is where the mystery really kicks into high gear. The abandoned tent really tells a story of pure, unfiltered panic. Like we said, it was sliced open from the inside, and all their critical gear, boots, warm clothes, food, maps, it was all left behind, neatly packed. Leading away from the scene, investigators found footprints in the snow from people who were wearing barefoot or just wearing socks. I mean, can you imagine the level of terror that would make you choose freezing to death over staying in your tent for one more second? And this map just shows you how grim the whole scene was. The bodies weren't all in one place, they were scattered over a mile. The first 2 were found under a big cedar tree. Then 3 more, including the group's leader, were found frozen in these positions that suggested they were desperately trying to crawl back to the tent. But it took 2 more months for the snow to melt enough to reveal the final 4, who were buried under 13 feet of snow in a nearby ravine. And this is where the evidence just gets completely contradictory. It's like the bodies are telling 2 totally different stories. The first 5 who were found, they died of hypothermia, which is tragic, of course, but it makes sense given the situation. But the final 4, the ones found in the ravine, that was a whole different ballgame. These hikers had suffered catastrophic trauma. I'm talking a fractured skull, ribs crushed with a force that doctors compared to being hit by a car. But here's the part that makes absolutely no sense. There were no external wounds, no bruises, no cuts, nothing on their skin to explain how they could be so completely devastated on the inside. And then there's the final horrifying detail that just defies any rational explanation. One of the hikers, a woman named Ludmila Dubinina, was found with her tongue missing. The medical examiner had no idea how or why. So what on earth happened out there? With all this bizarre, conflicting evidence, researchers have spent decades trying to put the pieces together. Let's break down the 3 most compelling theories. All right, theory number 1 is the most scientific, most accepted explanation: a slab avalanche. The idea is that a big, heavy block of snow slid down the mountain and slammed into the tent while they were sleeping. This could potentially explain the crushing internal injuries on some of them, and it would definitely explain the panic that made them cut their way out and run.
But that theory has some major problems. For one, the tent was collapsed, but it wasn't buried under tons of snow like you'd expect. The footprints leading away from it looked weirdly orderly, not like a frantic scramble for their lives. And maybe the biggest problem, these were expert hikers, and they had specifically picked a spot that was not considered a high-risk avalanche zone.
So that brings us to theory number 2, a secret military test. You've got to remember, this was the peak of the Cold War. This theory suggests the hikers were simply in the wrong place at the absolute wrong time and walked right into a secret weapons test. A concussive blast from something, maybe a parachute mine, could explain those powerful internal injuries with no external marks.
And this theory actually has some weirdly compelling evidence to back it up. A totally separate group of hikers, about 30 miles away, reported seeing strange, bright orange orbs moving silently across the sky on the exact same night that the Dyatlov group died.
And there are 2 more details that give this military theory some serious weight. First, the official Soviet investigation was shut down and classified with what you could call suspicious speed. And second, and this one is a big one, lab tests found low levels of radioactivity on some of the hikers' clothes.
Okay, our third theory is maybe the strangest of all. It suggests the mountain itself became a weapon. The idea is that high winds moving over the specific shape of the mountain created something called infrasound, a sound frequency so low you don't hear it with your ears, you feel it in your bones. Studies suggest this can cause intense, irrational panic, a feeling of dread, like you're suffocating. It could have, theoretically, driven the hikers into a sudden, inexplicable madness. So you've got avalanches, secret weapons, and sound waves. But despite all these theories, the case was officially closed with a conclusion that, well, explained absolutely nothing, leaving this mystery to haunt people for decades.
This was it. This was the official verdict from the Soviet investigators back in 1959. The cause of death was an unknown, compelling, natural force. I mean, that's so vague it's almost poetic. It did nothing to solve the case, and honestly, it just fueled a ton more speculation.
Because in the end, we're left with all these impossible questions. Why cut the tent? Why run out barefoot? What could cause those injuries? Where did the radiation come from? And what happened to Ludmila's tongue? Each theory can kind of explain 1 or 2 of these things, but not a single one can explain it all.
And that's exactly why, more than 60 years later, we are still so fascinated and terrified by this story. It's just a perfect storm of bizarre evidence, unanswered questions, and theories that are all plausible but totally unproven. It really is one of the great unsolved cases of all time.
It's a mystery that really forces you to question what's possible. Was it a freak act of nature, a dark government secret, or something else entirely? So the final question, really, is one I have to leave with you. What do you think really happened on Dead Mountain?